Hey everyone, Austin here again with another Let's Play video. Today it's going to be Aladdin for the Super Nintendo by Capcom, as you can see. This is a fun game. It's a side-scrolling action platformer. Lots of running, lots of jumping, lots of hopping on enemies' heads, things like that. No sword swiping, unlike the Genesis version of the game, but you can still throw apples, and you've got a floating mechanic as well, which is pretty neat. This is actually quite different from the Sega Genesis game. There's a lot of comparisons done between the two, and I don't really actually want to kick this off by comparing the two, but it's kind of hard not to fall into the trap of doing that when you're playing Aladdin on the Genesis or Super Nintendo. But yeah, we're gonna run through this game. Before we kick things off, as usual, I'd like to give a big shout out to my Patreon backers. No new Patreon backers over the last few weeks, but to all those continuing to support the channel through Patreon, I really appreciate it. And to everyone not supporting through Patreon, it's all good. I appreciate your support either way, just by watching this video and enjoying it. Also, big shout out to the recent super chatters as well from the recent live streams. I do live streams every Thursday night here on YouTube at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, so feel free to hang out and check those out if you're bored one night on Thursday. So yeah, I've actually previously done a playthrough of this, but it was not a Let's Play. It was back in like 2011 or 2012 when I was still doing long plays, where I would basically just play through the whole game, and then I would add a commentary after the fact. So they probably weren't as entertaining because the commentary wasn't live and the gameplay wasn't live either. And I don't think it was the best run as well either. So it's cool that I'm able to revisit this in a live Let's Play, for one, for the live Let's Play aspect, and two, for the better video quality. I've got, you know, the Super Nintendo going through RGB now into an upscaler, which makes things look pretty nice compared to, you know, just straight stock composite, which is what we're used to here in North America, or we were used to. If you play it on a modern HD display, it kind of looks like crap, but playing it in RGB through an upscaler, it really does look beautiful. It's good stuff. So I'm intentionally letting the intro roll out here. I figured that, you know, I don't think I did that in my previous long play, so I figured I'll let the story segments run out too. Only problem with that is that I just don't know what to say during half of them. So yeah, these are your controls. You got your background music sound test, which is pretty cool. And you can switch the stereo sound to mono if you have an old mono setup. So yeah, Aladdin on Super Nintendo is a really nice looking game. I mean, it's very typical of Capcom games from back in the day. Very, very colorful. You know, there was some transparency and things like that on the title screen, which is always nice. Alright, so again, like I said, Aladdin, it's one of those just like run and jump, hop and bop, whatever you want to call them, games. You just hop on enemies' heads. It's not all that complex. One of the things about Aladdin, though, is that Aladdin never really wants to fully stop unless you're literally fully stopped. Notice that he's always trying to run, so it actually makes gameplay a little tricky in this one, a little challenging to get used to, because he's always trying to run, even when you don't want him to. And you can hang on ledges for a little bit, almost like Prince of Persia style. See, like that. And then you can just press down to let go. And so what we're going to want to do is try to come up here and pick up this. So basically what this lets us do is hold R now in the air, and we can float for a little bit, which is really nice. And there's a lot of platforming elements throughout the course of the game that requires you to be decent at that. And what we just picked up there was a life extend, so now we have 4 hearts, and that one was pretty obvious, but in case you missed it, it was a 1-up. And there's also these red gems here, and the red gems are important if you want to get the best ending in the game. We're not going to be going for the best ending. I tried it, and there's some very, very tricky locations of those red gems. This guy right here, the Golden Scarab, gives you access to a bonus stage after each level. So if you see that, it's good to pick it up. You can get some extra lives, you can earn extra continues, and things like that. These guys, you want to just wait until they shoot their arrows, and then try to jump on them after they've shot their arrow. Otherwise, you'll jump into them, and they'll aim up, and they'll probably shoot you as you're falling down and landing on top of them. So this is the bonus stage I was talking about. It's a spin wheel, and you can pretty much just tap A whenever you want, and then it will slow down like so. And so basically the stars give you extra continues. The 1-up and 2-up, those should be pretty obvious. And you can also land on the genie sometimes, and the heart. Alright, so much like, say, the Genesis version of the game, you can actually toss apples at enemies as well to stun them. And really, really useful in the early parts of the game, so you probably want to pick up some apples, although you get a lot of apples for each one. It looks like you get 10 for each one you pick up. So it's not like you're really ever hurting for apple ammo in this game. So we just stun him for a quick moment. And we just stun that big guy. Just like so, just hop on their heads. It's a very simplistic game, and, you know, going back to the Genesis comparison, I know people that have played the Genesis version of the game and then played the Super Nintendo one and were kind of disappointed with it because it's, you know, a much more simplistic platformer, whereas the Genesis one was definitely a lot more complex. There was, you know, much more intricate level design, and so forth. The action was faster. There was definitely more going on with the overall, you know, game playfield layouts itself. But there's also people that have played this one first, and then they go and play the Genesis version, and they feel like the combat doesn't feel solid. And obviously, the Genesis version has taken a major sound hit. You know, the music definitely sounds much more like the movie in the Super Nintendo version, as opposed to the Genesis version. So it's actually kind of an interesting thing to look at, and I wonder if people's preferences over one or the other is just based on what they played first. But they're both really solid games. They're both games I highly recommend checking out. And, you know, I actually have never finished the Genesis version. I've played it a lot, but I've never actually beaten that game. Mainly because I never owned it back when I was younger. I didn't own this one either, but I at least had neighbors that allowed me to borrow it from them. And, you know, when you're young, growing up in the late 80s and 90s, you know, having access to a game, being able to borrow it, might as well have been owning it back then, because we would borrow some of these games over and over and over again, and there's a lot of borrowed games I played that I ended up playing more than actual games I physically owned myself. It was really an interesting scenario to be in as a kid in that time period. I'm not sure if it's still the same for kids these days, because so many games are a digital download. But Aladdin was one of those games we borrowed a lot, and so I have a lot of experience running through this game, even though I never really owned it as a kid. I just borrowed it from my neighbors quite frequently. And keep in mind, I also have a brother. You know, those of you guys that have caught me on the live stream, you guys have been able to meet him, Brandon, and he's also been on a couple of Let's Plays here with me. So, you know, I grew up with him, and, you know, he would also borrow stuff too. It wasn't just me. Let's try to get this. Grab onto the side, just hold on, and then press up. Yeah, so I mean, he would try to borrow stuff too. It's not like it was just me. I wasn't an only child or something like that. So there was double the content that was constantly coming in through our doors. And I think there's a gem down here. You can just grab it like that and then work your way back up. Yeah, and Aladdin was one of those games I played a lot, whereas the Genesis Aladdin was not. I got to play it, I think, once or twice as a kid, just very briefly. Actually, not very briefly. I think I got to spend a whole night with it at a friend's house, because one of my friends had a Sega Genesis. It was his main system, and I guess he must have rented Aladdin or something, and I think that's where I got to play it. And I remember getting to like the dungeon section and thinking this is really cool, but never really got a chance to make it farther than that. And so one of my goals in modern times is to try to actually go through that game and really give it a fair shake, and in particularly comparing it to the Super Nintendo version. Alright, so this guy, once he goes crazy, you just want to toss an apple at him. And you're going to find like a lot of the boss fights in this game are pretty simplistic. They're pretty basic patterns like this. Not to say they're bad patterns or anything, it's just, you know, it's not the most complex platformer. And when some people complain about the game, I think that's just the biggest thing they complain about. Because it's not quite as complex as even other games that came out before it. You look at other platformers on the Super Nintendo, and it is definitely not the most complex. So this actually tracks how many red gems you got as well. And there's actually 70 red gems in the entire game, and you have to be able to get them all if you want to get the best ending. And I actually tried doing that on Twitch, and yeah, I failed pretty badly. There was a handful that I missed. I think I probably got, I don't know, unless I missed a lot in the flying stage, which you know, is entirely possible I missed a lot. Just because you can scroll the stage up and down, and you'll see what I mean once we get there. I mean, I'm probably lucky if I get 65 on the live stream. We did get quite a few of the tricky ones, and, you know, I can try to show you how to get some of them, but there's some of them I don't know how to get either. And so if you're an expert in this game, feel free to chime in and let me know how to get some of the gems that I'm going to intentionally miss. So basically what this game does, as you can see, it actually, you know, kind of really details the story of the movie. So if you're a big fan of the movie, you know, I guess this could be kind of cool. I always just skip through this stuff personally, but I figured I'd just go ahead and let it play out in this playthrough, since I don't normally do that. I'm going to guess that's probably going to extend our playthrough by about half, because these seem like they can drag on for a while. There we go. Alright, you'll notice that these guys will just fall over, or fall down, and you can hang on this ledge as well. And watch out for hills, because they do actually speed you up. Something to keep in mind. Oops. Oh well. Yeah, so pretty much nothing in this game kills you instantly, so that's something that's probably nice for a lot of players. And so, you know, if you miss, you fall in spikes or even like lava or something like that, you'll take a hit, you'll fly back up, and you'll be invincible for a few frames. Those little scorpions there, you can actually just apple them. Ooh, my R trigger didn't work. My R trigger is actually flaky, and I should have swapped to a different Super Nintendo controller. I need to replace the domes in this controller and see if that fixes things. But yeah, my right shoulder key is very flaky, and unfortunately, I kind of broke my good Super Nintendo controller. I had a better, snappier controller that I recently broke, and so yeah, with it no longer functioning, I'm back to using this old controller that has a flaky R button, and a flaky R button is not very good in this game because you need it. You have to hold R when you use your hover or float mechanic. Unfortunately, it looks like we're gonna miss that. Oh, we missed the bonus stage. Now, there's another gem actually up here, I think. So you want to actually use this bat. Bam, just like that. That's what I tried to do first, but I kind of got ahead of myself. Another scorpion. Let's just wait for him to come up so we can get that gem. And I think there's going to be another red gem here as well. Yep, right here. And this part right here, you can just hang on to this ledge to get that gem. And this gem is pretty obvious. Oh, why did I do that? Why did I do that? I thought I was going to be able to latch onto it, but I was too far down. You can actually sort of latch onto those things from the side, but you can't be too far down before you do it. And notice these checkpoints. So Aladdin on Super Nintendo Doesn't really seem like it's got many checkpoints. It's just either all or nothing. So if you die at a part like that, you're gonna have to do a lot of the stage over again. But it at least gives us a chance to get the bonus stage. And another extra life. Yeah, so I basically wanted to do that so I can get this. Oh, and I messed up. I didn't fling up high enough. Oh well. Alright, so these guys here, you pretty much just want to jump over them. And you can jump on these swords. It's going to be a lot of jumping on things in this game. Alright, and there's the magic carpet from the movie. It's actually been a really long time since I've seen the movie. I remember really enjoying a lot of those Disney, you know, those big Disney movies in the early 90s, like Aladdin and Lion King. Those were also staples of my, you know, early 90s childhood. But aside from Aladdin on Super Nintendo, I actually didn't get a lot of chances to play a lot of the big Disney games back then, based on those movies. Like, I didn't really get to play Lion King. That was a big one that I knew a lot of people had access to, but I did not. Aladdin on Super Nintendo, though, I did get to play a lot of. But games based on other Disney properties back then, like the Jungle Book was another big one that I remember them making games for. I think that was another Virgin Games team up. Like, so basically for the Sega Genesis version of, not just Sega Genesis, but Genesis, I think NES in Europe, and even MS-DOS. There's an MS-DOS version of it. There might have been other computer versions too, come to think of it. Maybe not released in the United States, but they did exist. But basically a Disney and Virgin Games team up. That's basically who made the Genesis and MS-DOS, etc., Aladdin. It was a combination of those two companies. And I think Jungle Book might have been another team-up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I probably am wrong. But let me know, I'm curious. Alright, so I think we can just come over here. We're going to work our way up. And then we're going to go to the first of the flying stages. So these guys, you can actually just jump on top of them. And it's quite possible there could be a gem down here on one of these areas. Yep, it looks like it. And this is probably... I don't know if I trust this. Yeah, I had a feeling it was going to be water. So very cool. This is actually one of the gems I missed when I was playing through this on Twitch. But there's a couple sections like that where you need to scroll the screen downward in order to get the red gem. And look at that, permanent life extend. Very nice. It's always good to have. So, one of those things I discovered while doing a Let's Play. That's something that's been happening more recently lately, more frequently, as of recent. Alright, so that's that. Okay, no, not the flying section. I forgot we have to go through this part first. So this part can be pretty tricky. There's a, you know, some tight platforming you've got to do. Alright, so that's our first red gem. There's going to be another one right here. Tough to do it without getting hit. Very nice. I really like how this level looks. There's lots of nice parallax in the background. Which parallax scrolling is where you've got multiple layers of background scrolling at different speeds. And the Super Nintendo was actually really good with that. And on levels like this, it really looks nice. Alright, that's bread. We don't need bread. I'm gonna wait, because one of these is a golden scarab. Yeah, kind of like that. Oh, I just missed it. Alright, so I have to grab it here. Oh, got it. Got it by accident. And we're gonna miss that gem, unfortunately. This one, you've got to hover down and then go to the right real quick. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I had to sneeze. And we're gonna miss that one, too. So you can see that if you want to get the best ending in the game, it actually is kind of difficult. There actually is some challenge involved in this game when it comes to, you know, trying to get everything in the game. All the red gems. If you're just playing through the game casually, not trying to do that, it's not that hard. It's not a very challenging game. It's actually a really good platformer for beginners that have trouble with platforming games. And I know you guys are out there. I know you guys are out there. I know there's a lot of people out there that just aren't very good at any genre. So yeah, Aladdin's definitely a very good game to play if you're not that great at platformers. So another continue. In a way, getting an extra continue is better than getting the extra lives, because continues basically are extra lives. Although they do send you all the way back to the very beginning of the stage. I don't predict that we're going to be continuing, though. I think we're going to be doing just fine in this playthrough. There's not a whole lot of, like, really difficult Okay, right as I say that, I die. I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, there's not a whole lot of really difficult parts in the game. Unless you're trying to get all the red gems. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some tricky stages in the game. But for the most part, yeah, we're gonna be fine. Alright, and that should pretty much do it for us. The thing about that that carpet ride mode right there is, the controls are a little laggy on that part, and I think that was probably intentional. But that is probably the trickiest part of that section, is the fact that your carpet doesn't seem all that responsive. Yeah, so, you know, I guess some of this kind of comes off as somewhat lazy, though, and I hate to be negative sounding about it. I mean, for kids it was probably fine, but, you know, there's a lot of text and things like that. Like, they could have done, like, you know, a slideshow, you know, actually showing all the things they're talking about, but it's just this one image of the genie just sitting there. There's a lot of detail just lost that they could have implemented there. I know, like, just general slideshows like that are kind of lazy. Even back in the day, it was kind of lazy when it came to storytelling. But it would have been more and something else to look at on those sections if you actually bothered to Watch those sections. So yeah, we're basically inside the genie's lamp, apparently, and so this is basically kind of like the mid part of the movie. And we missed that gem, but you know, if you need those gems, the enemies do respawn. Just like this. There we go, so we got that gem. And the genie's gonna come down, I guess, make some things appear. There he is. You can look at Abu in the background, he's hanging onto the flying carpet. That's funny. It's a good, some good detail in the game, for sure. You know, it's definitely a nice looking game. It's definitely got some personality. You know, it's a good game. If anyone tries to tell you it's not a good game, then they probably don't really know what they're talking about. But it's definitely a fun game. You know, I will be honest, like, my favorite Disney games are the ones that came out during the NES era. Like, I love going back and playing DuckTales, which I actually coincidentally did a Let's Play on last week. I love playing Chip and Dale and things like that. So when I do Disney games, my go-tos aren't usually the 16-bit ones. But I don't know, maybe that'll change, like, the more I play some of them. Like, again, I mentioned I didn't really play much of Lion King back in the day. Not on the Genesis, anyway, or the Super Nintendo. But maybe we'll eventually be able to do a Let's Play on that, and same with Aladdin on the Sega Genesis. And I know there's a bunch of supposedly good Genesis Disney games that were not made by Disney, or Capcom for that matter, but Sega in the early days. Sega had the Disney license for the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive, and so there was a lot of games by Sega, like the Land of Illusion and World of Illusion, I think, and things like that, that I haven't really put any time into either. So you can probably tell I'm not doing a whole lot of explaining now in terms of the actual gameplay, and it's really because this game is really simple. It's not that complex. I mean, it's just it's not that complex. Like, it's just a hop and bop kind of platformer. Just use the R button a lot. You'll notice every time I'm jumping in the air, I'm floating. The floating just makes you have more time to gauge where you're gonna land on the platforms, and that's always a good thing. You're not timed in this game. There's no reason to rush unless it's an auto-scroller, like the lava level was an auto-scroller, where basically the screen is just pushed forward. They call those auto-scrollers. Just use those apples to take those guys out. Use your spring, they just hop you up. It feels like if you press A at the right time, press and hold A at the right time, it seems like you go a little bit higher. Maybe I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. I think you just have to hold B. The jump button, that's it. Alright, so these blocks fall down. And there's gonna be some red gems here as well. There's one. There's two. And this one we want to jump over here. There we go. And then hang on to that. Alright. So this is one of the trickier sets of stages in the game. You'll notice that there's sand on the ground. There's also these sand bats or birds that come up. You can't latch on to the sides where you see sand flowing off the edges. So that can be a little difficult to get used to. Because you spent the entire game up to this point being able to grab onto pretty much any ledge you see. And now, you can't. So that's pretty tricky. Now there's also a red gem up here. Nope, wrong one. I'm thinking of over to the right a little bit more. Just land right on that guy, and here's a red gem right there. And a golden scarab. And we missed it. That's alright. I think the red gem might actually be up here to the left. This is one of the ones I couldn't get. I couldn't really figure out how to get it. I figured you needed to bait the birds up, but I just wasn't able to. So yeah, if you know how to get that one, let me know. That was the one I was talking about earlier in the Let's Play. Okay, let's actually see if... No, we're just gonna do this. We got tight platforming right here. It's probably the trickiest part in the whole set of stages. At least for me, anyway. Because the second you touch that, that sand, it starts pushing you in whatever direction it's flowing. Looks like I have no apples, either. And looks like there's a gem down here, and this is a platform. Yeah. Alright, extra life. And finally, we got some apples. So each apple was worth 10. So it's not like the Genesis or MS-DOS versions of Aladdin where there's just apples everywhere. And we just float down here to get that gem. And there we go, another stage down. We're about 33 minutes into this so far. Curious how long the rest will take with all the story elements going through, because I always skip the story elements, so I'm not actually familiar with how much time it takes with the story elements, just because I always skip them. I'm very particular about when I get invested in a story in a classic video game like this. Usually it's not with simple platformers like this. A lot of the games I play don't have a ton of story in-game, you know, like the Castlevanias and some of the Mega Mans and whatnot. Ninja Gaiden's probably one of those few exceptions. And Abu eats an apple. And this is our flying stage. And I hope I don't get a copyright claim for this music. I got nailed with multiple claims on DuckTales, but I think they were false claims, but still, we're gonna see how that plays out. just some of the nonsense you gotta deal with when doing playthroughs like these on YouTube. If you're doing just reviews, you know, your footage is cut so short, it doesn't usually trigger the copyright stuff in YouTube's system. And but something like this, where there's extended music in the background, that the system's really got a lot of time to pick up on. My Let's Plays, in a lot of cases, will get claimed by companies. Some of them legit, some of them not. It's the legit ones that I worry about. Not so much worry about, it's just, it's always a bummer uploading a Let's Play and it gets just dinged, and, you know, it gets dinged. I lose full control over the video, basically, at that point. So we'll see what happens with this. Remember this being kind of a popular song back then, but we'll see what happens. You'd think, oh, video game rendition from the 16-bit era, it won't trigger anything, but there's some stuff on the NES that gets triggered, and it's not even real music in the same sense that, you know, like a film score is, but the note progression is very similar, or if not the same in certain cases, and it triggers it on that. And it's kind of aggravating as someone who does playthroughs of these games all the time for you guys. Maybe I need to start doing reviews again. Yeah, so we're actually getting close to the end of the game now. I think this might actually be Jafar's Palace, which is definitely the toughest set of levels in the game. But yeah, no, we're actually farther along than I expected. Alright, here we go. So this is kind of tricky right here. These guys throw these knives up, and if you jump on top of them, you'll get propelled high enough to where he'll start throwing the daggers upwards, or the knives upwards. And I think I might have gotten a red gem up top here. It was behind the pillar, and I had no idea that was there. I assume it was a red gem. Alright, I'm not going to worry about that one. Yeah, so some of these guys require you to, you know, hop on their blades in order to get a lot of these gems. So it's pretty tricky. Yeah, I'd say if there's a part that's, you know, the hardest point in the game, it's definitely Jafar's Palace, for sure. So if you're gonna have trouble, you're probably gonna have trouble here. We'll go ahead and just try to get this red gem, just like that. And this extra life. Throw an apple at him. Alright, and that's that. Alright, so there's gonna be this guy over here that just floats over. You want to kind of bait him over like this. And this is going to be another red gem. You have to hop on these knives to get. Just like so. Pretty tricky to get that one. And then you got to do it again if you want to get the other one. So let's go back. Remember, enemies do respawn in this game. So just push them off the screen. Oops. Oh, I missed it again. There we go. Got it. You notice that guy can dodge apples too, so if you throw them at him, it does absolutely nothing. I don't know if I've had this many lives before. I don't know if it actually counts above 9 lives, like if you get 10 or 11 or 12, or if just 9 is the maximum and that's it. Another extra life. Yeah, this game really feeds you extra lives. Not just through, like, extra lives, extra life icons, but through the gems. You know, you get a certain amount of gems, you'll get an extra life that way. And, ooh, that was close. I was gonna say we're about to take a hit. So landing on these chains actually rotates these diverters. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. You hit fire, you still don't die. It just does 1 hit point of damage, and as you can see, we've got 8 hearts. Oh, and I made that mistake before the first time I played this. I always thought that you could latch onto those things, but you can't. So we missed that red gem. Alright, this is pretty much it. This is the final set of bosses. So he's basically going to drop his staff, and you need to hop on it, then hop on his head. And this lightning that he drops seems to be kind of random, too. Alright, let's try this again. Okay. Doing a terrible job of this so far. It seems like you're best off waiting for the him to drop this. But what I was doing is I was kind of tanking when I was practicing this on Twitch, jumping on the urn guys. It looks like you could actually hit them on the way down if you do it just right. Very tight timing though. Oh, there we go. Got it. Awesome. That's actually good because this next form really isn't all that challenging. And I think we're going to get our health back too. So that Jafar battle right there was probably the hardest boss fight in the game. There's actually some decent graphical effects in this battle as well, which is nice. Alright, so basically you're on his body, his snake body, and it can go below into the fire, so you need to make sure you're jumping, you're in the air when it goes below. And then he also lunges forward like that, and you can just hop on his head. So I want to say there's 2 forms of this. Alright, we're not going to hit that. Oops. So I'm getting sloppy now, but I don't know. I mean, there's no real punishment for you, you know, taking hits. You know, there's no bonus you get for defeating a boss without, you know, taking damage or something like that. Actually, there's only one form. I forgot. Like, I always felt like every time I play this game, after I defeat the boss, I always think like he's gonna come back and be faster and more powerful, but no, it's just scripted. And so there we go! That is pretty much Disney's Aladdin for the Super Nintendo. It's the last bit of story in the game. And there we go. Oh man, Disney's Aladdin for the Super Nintendo, guys. Full Let's Play of it. It was good to revisit this game. Like I said, it's a pretty good game. It's fun. I like it. It's not my go-to game for the Super Nintendo when I play platformers. You know, I'm self-proclaimed big fan of Super Mario World and stuff like that. And but it is a solid game, and I highly recommend checking this out. I mean, if you like bright, colorful platformers that aren't very stressful, it's most certainly not stressful. It's definitely worth checking out. And so it looks like we get some credits here. Yeah, so that puts us at just under an hour as well. But, alright guys, well, I mean, this is pretty much the end of the video, so I might as well just, wrap things up here. I'll let the credits roll out. As usual, guys, I'd like to say thanks for watching. If you enjoy this type of content and you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing so you can keep up to date with my future uploads and whatnot. If you're already subbed, thanks for your usual support. Hope you guys continue to enjoy these videos. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you know, you got any questions or comments or anything like that, as usual. And once again, thank you to my Patreon backers. Like I thanked at the beginning of the video, might as well thank you at the end again. So thank you for your continued support. And if you guys are ever bored on Thursday night, I'm here doing live streams on YouTube with a variety of different video game topics and themes and whatnot each and every week for the time being, for the foreseeable future. So feel free to come hang out then as well, or catch the archive if you miss the actual live stream. So, alrighty guys, well, I'm going to wrap things up here. Enjoy the rest of the ending. Take care, have yourselves a good night or a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.